Okay, now it's time to make something this type can disappear behind. So I'm thinking, let's keep it simple and let's create a line that appears at the top. So let's create a new shape layer. And here will be the thing that we are disappearing into. And let's get our palette back up here for a second. Let's change the color. Let's grab this yellow. And we'll hide that again. And in this new shape layer, I am just going to, with the rectangle tool, make a simple rectangle. Boom. Let's see what that looks like. That looks nice. All right, simple. Taking position by hitting P, moving it up a little bit. And now here we are going to change the anchor point. So what I want this bar to do is to appear from the left to the right, like it's being drawn across the screen. And first off, I'm just going to line this up to my left edge nicely. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the pan behind tool and grab this big anchor point. You are going to pin it to the leftmost center of these control points. That way, when you click on the shape layer and hit S for scale, and we're going to untoggle constrain proportions. That way, when we change the X scale, it will look like it's being drawn across the screen. So let's change that back to 100. And let's create a keyframe. So this is where we want it to be. And let's see when we want this to appear. So we've got design, animation, illustration. Let's have it pop on right as if we hit U. And we're going to have it come on right as our type controller is done animating. And so we're just going to grab this its X scale and turn that to 0. And now if we preview it, we'll see the bar animate on nice and simply. And again, like everything else we've dealt with, these are linear frames. So we're going to select them, right click, and turn them to easy ease. So we're going to preview that one more time. That looks nice. Design, animation, illustration. It takes a little while. It's a little slow. So I'm going to, with these frames selected, click on Graph Editor. And we're going to fit all graphs to view. And we're just going to, like before, slide one of this, slide the right handle over, but we're going to leave the left handle alone. That way it eases in a little bit, but it's still got some snappiness to it. That looks great. So now that the bar animates across, we want the bar to animate down so it crosses on top of the type and we can hide the type as it passes over. And we could do this by simply hitting P on our keyboard and animating a position keyframe. But for reasons I'll explain later, we are going to animate this instead on a null object. So we're going to hit New, hit Null Object, and we are going to hit Enter on our keyboard to type in a new name. And I'm going to call it Bar Controller. I'm going to go a little later in our timeline, and I'm going to move this so it is directly in the middle of our bar. And then I'm going to rename our shape layer to bar and parent it to the bar controller. So now you'll see if we hit P on our keyboard, we can move the position of the bar controller and it moves the bar itself. So now, once this bar is completely filled out, and we can see where that is by hitting U on our keyboard when we have the bar layer selected, and that reveals our animated keyframes. And we go here, we'll see it's completely animated, completely revealed at this point. So I'm going to make a position keyframe on our controller, and then I'm going to move ahead an arbitrary amount of time. And I'm going to slide this type. Actually, now that I'm moving it down, I'm seeing that the bar runs a little bit over the side. Wasn't exactly accurate, lining up all my ends. So what I'm going to do is just simply go to my bar, go to the previous keyframe, and just make this ever so slightly shorter. So I'm going to do 99.5. And then you can see it lines up nicely with that top end. It doesn't line up great with these, but it'll be moving so fast at that point you won't be able to notice anyway. If I wanted to, I could always go back and switch it, but let's get this bar controller down on the last keyframe below the type. All right, nicely. And then if we play this back, I'm going to play this back. You can see what we have. Okay. Nice. Again, this bar is moving very linearly, so it doesn't look very fluid, but we can just fix that by selecting the keyframes, clicking Easy Ease, and we can go into our graph editor and we can see that curve. And this is the default curve, the standard one like we discussed before, so I want to make this a little bit more snappy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in the right side like we did before, but then I'm going to grab the left side and also pull that closer, pull these handles towards each other. That way we've got a very slow beginning, a very fast middle, and then a very slow end as well. So we're going to save and just preview that off. Nice. Okay, great. Now the next thing we need to do is hide the type once this bar crosses over top. And there's many ways you can do that with masks. And we will discuss some options later, but for now we're going to do it the simple way, and that is to just hide them behind a blue shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new shape layer right underneath our bar, and I'm going to name it Blue Fill, and I am going to create a new shape right over top all of the typography. And I'm going to fill that with this background color, right? Then I'm going to go to the end where the bar is completely covering the type. Make sure it's centered on the bar. And then I'm going to parent this blue fill to the bar or the bar controller. For this, I'm going to parent it to the bar controller. And now, if we play it back, you can see we got design, animation, illustration, and they all disappear. Look at that. Boom. And this blue layer you can see is actually there the entire time, but it's hidden. I'm going to trim this layer just so it's not there before we need it. Great, so now we have our typography all animated. In the next section, we will use shape layers to illustrate and animate ourselves.